can start the Facebook Live. Okay, we're live. So Mariana, welcome again, and welcome to everyone else.
Thank you. Should I start from beginning?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Just a quick reminder to everyone, please shut your microphones.
I think it's from Carlos Javier. Microphone. Please mute yourself.
Si pueden revisar que no tengan el micrófono prendido, por favor, para que no se meta la llamada del ruido.
We've got to be bilingual here.
Cualquier pregunta que
I understand, yeah.
Cualquier pregunta que quieran hacer la puedan hacer en el chat y nosotros lo podemos transmitir a Mariana.
Okay. Go ahead, Mariana. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So hi everyone again. So my name is Mariana. I am a senior designer, architectural designer at Zaha Hadid Architects for the last 4 years. I'm also a teacher at DAA, Architectural Association in London. I teach at the DRL, Design Research Laboratory. And I'm also a teacher live. I do a lot of workshops live for a very specific software, which is a software that I use every day. And it's the software that I want to show you today as well. So in this presentation, I decided to talk a little bit about me as a student of architecture. Traditionally, this is how I start my talks. They are usually very important to speak about this phase in my life, because since I'm talking to the student community, it's very important to kind of disclosure the step from being a student to being a professional. So I'll be also talking about my professional life as an architect at Zaha. And then I want to show you a little bit what is high-end design in architecture, which is what I do in office, and it is also what I do, what I teach. And then I want to just jump really quickly into this chapter called Beyond Architecture. So who are we apart from being architects? Okay, so starting from the beginning, I was a student at the School of Architecture in Lisbon, Portugal. I'm Portuguese. I also studied in the Politecnico di Milano for 1 year. And then because I realized that I was not fully fulfilled as an architect, in this case, architectural designer, I decided to do another master in London, very specific, design-driven, called Design Research Laboratory. So I did a not very common career in school. I did 8 years of study overall, which is a lot. It's not a recipe. I don't think everyone should do this. 8 years is a long time. But in the end, it kind of translates the frustration that I had when I was a student in my country, and I was not really fulfilled. So that's why I extended my studies into something else. So as a student, I was very formal. I really believed in form, and I really believed in context and shape in context. That was kind of my motto. It was not something that was taught to me. It was something that I was doing with genuine drive, a bit naive even, but very plastic, with a lot of theory behind form. And in my country, form is not really something that we talk about. It's something that we avoid. And for one simple reason, I don't think my country has all the interest or budget to put on architectural design, which is form. Form is architectural design. And I was not taught about architectural design. And it was very clear to me that I was a designer. There was something else there beside the traditional boxes. So I was a bit confused when I finished my master. This is my final thesis. I was not really sure where to go. I was completely blindfolded. Most of the people, when they finished the masters, they were looking for a job. 99% of the people do that. And I was the only one who kind of thought that a job in Portugal would kill me and would kill my creativity. And it would probably make me rest on something that was not me. And it was average or mediocre at that time. So I thought I need to continue further. I don't know where. I started looking completely autonomous for something. I looked into Columbia School. I looked into other post-graduation courses. I even looked for PhDs. And then because this was kind of the scenario in my country, okay, so when you finish, you look for an internship, which is usually unpaid. It's usually very modern based, very boxy. It's fine if you do boxes. Some people don't like boxes. I didn't like boxes. And it was mostly about refurbishment, which was something that I really struggled with. I really don't like refurbishment in any way. So I was looking for new schools, and then I found one very specific school, which was the Design Architectural Association in London. It is a school where Zaha was a student, Cedric Price was a student, had been a student, Rem Koolhaas as well, Bernard Schumich and a friend of Peter Cook. They all were students at the AA at some point. So there was a lot of history in the AA school, and they were going to do an open day in January, something like that, an open day to show the school. They had post-graduation courses, they had PhDs. So I went for the open day. One day I decided I'm going to go for this open day. I'm going to see what's there. When I went to the open day of the school, there was a lot of people going in this auditorium. So I decided to follow the crowd, and I walked in this very, very big auditorium with packed full, completely dark, with all of these panels on the wall, a lot of models. And Patrick Schumacher was there as well. Theodore Spiropoulos. Zaha is usually a jury at that final presentation, but she wasn't there that day. And then people started presenting and they started talking. And then for the first time, I heard people who believed in the same things that I did, extremely design driven, with a lot of theory and a lot of background on design and a lot of history on design. In my school, we finished at Le Corbusier, and then from that point on, we stopped. But there's a lot of history, especially on architectural design, from Le Corbusier onwards. And they all knew it, they all had that knowledge. So I felt that I belonged there. I was going to apply. It's usually design research laboratory. It's usually a course that a lot of people apply, and only 30 are accepted, but I gave my shot, and little did I know that in 2 years I would be the one presenting there with the boards and with the models and with the judges. Going back, so I went back home and I said I want to go to DRL. DRL basically has 3 main studios. If you're interested, have a look. They have CEO Studio, which is more assembly based and prototype based. They have Sage and Alicia Studio, which is really interesting if you like robot fabrication, basic geometries and complex geometries for robot fabrication and assembly. They actually get to use robotic arms in California, for example, or Switzerland. So it's actually very interesting studio. And then they have another studio, which is Patrick's studio, which is the studio that I did, which is a studio that is more design driven, and it has a lot more the office kind of culture. Of course, I didn't know that this was so connected to Zaha office. I just went for the studio and I went for the course. So I decided I'm going to Patrick's studio. When I got in, I was accepted. I was really excited. I moved countries, which was like a big shock in the beginning, but I was so excited to join. It was more scary, the course, than moving countries. So when I got in, it was extremely international, of course. I only knew AutoCAD at that point, so I only did 2D and a lot of 3D by hand, a lot of iterations and models by hand. And we all had 6 months of pure software classes. 6 months when you only have software classes. Okay, so we had to learn all of the softwares that you see. We were having classes every week, Saturday, Sunday, mandatory classes. And we were doing also a couple of workshops. And then after these classes, you are able to get a team. In my case, I was working with Nicolas Tornero from Chile and Juan Carlos from Bogota. We worked for a whole year very close together every day. We were working every day. And after that, all of these software classes, you are capable to do exactly what you're looking at, which is our final thesis and our final project with Patrick. So our final project was about exoskeletons. Obviously, this is a student project. Okay, I would never put this in the city, but it was a very interesting research, because not only you have to do design, you have to actually build a thesis around it. Okay, so our thesis was around topology optimization. In that time, we were using a lot of Grasshopper for topology optimization, and then we were modeling everything in a software called Maya, which is a software that you do at Zaha and the software that I teach. Okay, so all of this was done in Maya. We presented. It was a super intense year. And as the final presentation came, with Patrick and with everyone, after a year and a half of DRL, the same question was put on the table. Where am I going after? Where am I going to work? Obviously, when I joined DRL, I got to know that a lot of people from DRL joined Zaha. And there was a huge opportunity there. So when I finished, I knew that this was my shot of working with an office of a person who was not my idol, but someone who I was really looking up to, which was Zaha. So I thought this is really the only opportunity I have, like that one shot. So I put my portfolio like really quickly in a couple of weeks, and I spoke with Patrick, and he actually recommended me to an interview with the head of the competition cluster. And I did the interview. I was obviously very nervous, but playing cool, as you should. And after the interview, 2 weeks later, I got to know that I was hired as an architectural designer at Zaha. Specifically at the Z cluster, which is the competition cluster. So I have been working for the competition cluster for the last 4 years. We do competitions, they last 5 months or 1 month. And we also do commissions. And if sometimes your project wins, usually we also stay longer with the project till it reach detailed design. So till it reached the last phase of the project, which I have done once with an airport. So the Z cluster, basically it means that in very big offices, obviously you have to split the office in small departments. Zaha, they call them clusters. So you have cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3, and you have this very specific cluster, which is the Zaha cluster. It is the cluster where Zaha used to do design reviews. It's a cluster that is responsible for high-end design. So the big projects that you see on magazines, or the projects where the biggest companies are competing against Foster's, MED, all of them, they usually pass through this cluster. We are 30 or 40 people, and it's a pleasure to work there. So it is a cluster mainly responsible for high-end design in architecture. So projects like this, for example, this is what high-end design means. Okay, not all projects at Zaha or any other office needs to be high-end. Some of them are high-end because of the client, because of the budget, because of the importance of the project. Some projects are just normal buildings that you guys don't get to see. Maybe I even don't get to see them, but obviously every office does regular buildings. These are the outstanding ones. There's one thing in common on all of these buildings, and it is the software that did these buildings. So the software responsible for the concept modeling of these buildings is Maya. So it's a software that is not Rhino, is not at all Rhino. It's not 3ds Max, although the language is similar, but 3ds Max is not as fluid and is a lot more complex and is not so user-friendly as Maya. It's a software that Zaha picked up a long time ago. She brought it to the office 40 years ago, 30-something years ago. Till then, until now, this software is used for animation companies. So DreamWorks, Pixar, they use Maya for animations. And then she brought this for architecture, and this is what happened. This is a software that I do every day. I do Maya as if I was the same way I hold a pen. Okay, I'm every day inside of this software, every day modeling with this software. So what is Maya? I'm going to show just a little bit of the basic principles, geometric basic principles. So you work with objects, you work with faces, you work with edges and vertices. This is how you work with geometry, and this is how you manipulate geometry. It has one of the best features in Maya is the smooth mesh preview. Okay, so your mesh is actually what you see on your left. It's a stiff mesh, it's rectangular mesh. And then your mesh with the smooth mesh preview algorithm applied, it's a curved mesh, okay? But in reality, it's the mesh on the left, the preview is the curved one, which applies an algorithm, the Catmull-Clark algorithm, which I invite you to have a look at. It's a mathematician algorithm, really interesting, that adds enough subdivisions that the edge between 2 points need to be curved. So this is what the projects are a little bit made of. They start from polygon primitives, exactly like Rhino. You start from a cube or from a torus. I personally really like to start from a torus and from a plane, and then you keep going back and forth, the 1 or 3, shifting from a stiff mesh or a curved mesh, and you just add edges and you manipulate the edges. It's a really, really simple concept. And for example, this is one of the first projects from the office. Obviously, I didn't work on this project. It's the Riverside Museum, and you can see how the basic Maya model is so simple and so easy to understand here. Okay, it's just a box with a couple of edges that are brought up. Super simple. This is Maya in its very beginning. And this is what you can also do if you turn this into an airport. This was just me having fun. I was teaching that model. So this is what all of these have in common. They have in common a specific software, and they have in common the same topology, but treated differently in Maya. Okay, so from a tower, you have a candle holder, and it's really interesting how it shifts from scales without having to be so precise like Rhino. You have also skylights from the airport. They can be used as the skylights from the Serpentine Gallery. It's exactly the same topology. It's exactly the same Maya technique. Okay, or the Baku project, or a simple bench, same model, same technique in Maya, a master plan or a tea and coffee set. And this is something, it's very provocative the way the office has the culture of changing scales and function. But it's quite simple, and it really shows you that things are a lot more flexible than we think. From a master plan, they can just make them and turn them into a texture on the wall. So there are not that many rules for this. So, and the same master plan Aljada, which I actually worked with, can be the ceiling from Rocca, Capsark master plan, or the bench sets. Okay, and this is another project that's not from the office. It's the project that I did in competition with 2 friends of mine from the DRL. And I want to explain you what the high-end design process is if you were in a competition in an office, or even for school. What kind of process do we use, and integrating this software in the process, okay? So I'm going to showcase this project, not from office. I cannot show projects from the office unless we won. So I'm going to show you this project, which I did last year in competition. So it was the Hyperloop Desert Campus in Nevada competition. I did it with Juan Carlos from Bogota, with whom I worked on the RL the whole year. We are friends. And I did it with another friend, Begum from Istanbul. She was also on DRL, and we worked digitally together during the pandemic, obviously meeting every week. And I was obviously responsible for the design of the project. So the first thing we do when we start a competition, or you guys start a project in school, is getting a brief. So you get the brief, and I believe that the brief says almost everything that the client wants or that your teacher wants. And then you add a little bit of you and a little bit of your creativity and your strategy, but the brief states a lot. So from the brief, we separate with brief, site, and program. From the brief and site, we take most of the keywords that seem important. So in this case, it was iconic building was a keyword in the brief. So you know it's going to be a landmark. Reddish rocks was kind of giving away a bit of color. It was a study center. It was mixing science and progress, but at the same time, it wanted to be integrated in the desert. So all of these keywords are separated in a booklet. We call it, it can be a booklet, it could be a mood board. And then you come down to program and you organize program. Okay, we understood that from the program they wanted 3 different units, 1 more private unit, 1 extremely public unit, and 1 in between. And then basically we split, everyone reads the brief, we split, we get our keywords, we get some illustration for our keywords. In this case, I have the oasis because of the desert and bringing water and bringing a little bit of green to the scene. It's very important to get some case studies. Okay, so if you're on a competition for a tower, or your brief in the school is a tower, an office tower, you go online and you look for projects that are office tower. It's really important to have case studies. It's more important than you think. Okay, someone has done what you are doing before and you want to do what they did plus an extra of what they didn't do. So it's important to get your case studies, and it's really important to get your keywords and the illustration for those keywords, whatever you have in mind. Okay, sometimes it's random, sometimes it's on the brief. Desert dunes is very illustrative, and basically I take this and I start modeling them. This is what I do. So the next step after everyone reads the brief and discuss the mood board is what kind of principles are we taking on board, and then 2 kind of work are happening in parallel. So in one side you have the Rhino people, the 2D people, or the simple extrusion people. They are just analyzing the massing that they need. That the program requires, and analyzing the basics. And at the other side, you have the design team, which is what I do in the office and what my team does. We are usually 4 or 3, and we just produce a bunch of ideas. All of us, 3 ideas per person. We produce a lot of ideas, a lot of models, a lot of screenshots, and we keep feeding these 2D and 3D Rhino people with our design. And then they tell us, let's say, you are under the program area, you have to increase this, or we say, okay, but can we compromise that? And it's a back and forth project between concept and program areas. Okay. The step after this one, in this case, this was one of my favorite options. It was the 3 oases and then a public tour, which was kind of looping around these 3 oases and these 3 different programs. We felt that this was too condensed. Actually, my teammates felt that this was too condensed. So we decided, okay, let's do this in 4 different units and 4 different courtyards, and let's make this prototype breathe. And that's when another keyword came into mind, which was the clover, the 4-side clover, which had the loop concept, which had the oasis concept, it had the green concept, and I decided, okay, I'm going to model this exactly like it is, modeled in 2D, and then I extruded in 3D, and that's when we arrived to the final Hyperloop campus. So basically it has a loop that is more public, and it gradually becomes more private into offices and into laboratories. And then these 2 main lines are restaurants and public activities like a museum, for example. Okay. In that point, in an office or in a competition or in your school, you decide, okay, my design is frozen. We are not going to move the concept. This is the concept. Okay, now the design obviously can start shifting, but this is the concept is closed. And this team, the Rhino team, starts doing everything they need for plans, for program to work, for space distribution and organization. And they obviously give this to us. We continue designing and we continue adapting the design. So it's a constant feedback loop between designers and planners. So as the other team, my team was doing this work for 2D and plans, I started doing something that is really important as well, which is keyframing the project. Okay, so you're not showing usually the whole project, right? No one wants to see bathrooms, no one wants to see kitchens. So I set the keyframes, I call them the money shots. Of my project, and from that point I know that I need to detail and to plan all of these keyframes for the future. So this is going to be my render views, and this is also going to be where I'm going to put my more work on these views. At the same time, another colleague, Begum, was looking at researching sustainability for the loop concept, which was really interesting because it was able to fit the resilience concept in the project. It is actually self-sufficient and independent. We also incorporated solar panels on the landscape, and it's very positive for the rainwater to circulate from top to bottom. And then in the end, it comes to a part that I think that even in school, everyone should acknowledge, which is the post-production part. It's something that I think in school was not really defended, and I don't think teachers realized that at that time, but there is a time that is called the post-production time. In an office, we give it 3 weeks. In this project, we also did 3 weeks for post-production, and in school, it should be the same. It's the time when your project finishes, ends, it is what it is. It is what it is. It's not going to move anywhere. And from this point on, you are only going to produce final production elements. So final plans, final sections, final diagrams, final renders, final everything. Your project is not changing. And we did this for the Hyperloop 3 weeks before it finished. We started outsourcing our 3D for renders, and at the same time I use V-Ray and I use a lot of Keyshot, and I was rendering in-house as well. So I started setting the main scenes for the outsourced renders, 2 exteriors, 2 interiors, setting the mood boards. We work with Mtra visuals from Bogota as well, and it was super smooth. We were back and forth for 3 weeks, and the final renders were amazing. Obviously, you get some corrections every day. You send a bit of corrections. These were the final renders for them. This was the money shot, the actual money shot. It was my favorite shot. It was absolutely stunning when they showed it to us. This is the interior view. So, like I said, we are reconciling a little bit of the virtual world with the landscape, earthy kind of feeling from Nevada. And these were the Keyshot renders that I did super quick in-house. At the same time, the 2D team is doing the final elements for 2D. Okay, so all sections, I was rendering a little bit of profiles, and all plans, they were finishing all the plans. You have 3 weeks for all of the final stuff, so they look good. I think that's the amount of time that you need for something to look good. And the final icon, of course, the Hyperloop Desert Campus, we put on the panel 2 days before, final panel with all the elements, all the diagrams explaining concept, explaining sustainability, explaining programs, sections, and then renders everywhere, okay? And we also put up a booklet that we sent, like a little compilation of pages with all the plans in scale. And that's when we finish the project, we submit it on competition. We are finalists, which is really good. But if I was in an office, we would finish the competition at the same time. I would get a day rest, and then I would start another project and another competition. And this is what I do at the office for the last 4 years. So I start the competition, I finish the competition, I start the competition, I finish the competition. In this case, I actually won a project, so I'm actually continuing with the project till the end. Okay. Obviously, high-end design can be taught, okay? It can be taught in school. It doesn't have to be part of your traditional school. I think it should be part of the architectural design specialization. I think it should be part of school, but as optional. Not everyone wants to do this kind of design of high-end design, and not everyone wants to be an architectural designer, but I teach it. I realized that this was a gap in the academic world, so it was something where I could help. I teach at DAA. This is what I've been doing outside of the office, of course, on weekends and after work. So I teach at DAA. I am a Maya class teacher. This was from the students from last year when we were able to work all together. It's always a super crowded class. It's a class that they never miss. So it's usually the 30 or 40 people in there. And I also teach online since the DRL is not for, it's kind of exclusive because they pick their own people. I thought that Maya as a simple software should be taught and should be spread around. So I decided to teach Maya online for the last year and something. My last Maya class had 180 people in a weekend. It's 8 hours, super intense, but the results are amazing. These are some of the results of the students from DRL. Extremely Maya driven, extremely design driven. Of course, the design here, it is out of control and it is too plastic, but this is how you learn how to be an architectural designer. These are some of the exercises I do in live classes. They look super complex. This is the best feature in Maya. Everything looks complex, but the reality is a really simple mesh. Also, this project was one of my favorites for classes as well. And this was my last one, which was the Starship, also done for teaching Maya. It was very successful. Everyone achieved really, really cool results. And some images from the inside. Obviously, this is already Maya intermediate level. This I would consider basic level. The mesh is really simple. The technique is very repeated, but the effect is amazing. I taught these projects for Live Academy. They are just little projects that I do for fun. And then this is what high-end design looks in an office. So this is the one of the few projects that I can show, which we have one. So I was involved in this project, was part of the team at the Zaha last summer. It was the Tower C in Shenzhen. We started during the pandemic, so we did everything virtually together. We started as 4 designers. And I was part of the right beginning, the very day 0. So this was an empty site, okay, I had nothing. And I did 1,000 of different tower options. And then the whole team agreed on this option. They also did their own options. And it was really exciting. The team got a lot bigger. We got like 10 people at that time. And then in the end, we submitted the project. We were shortlisted among Foster and I think SOM, I'm not sure. And we actually won the project. We won the project in November. It was a project for which took 5 months or 4 months, the whole summer. Right now, since we won, I was also appointed out to be part of the team that is taking the tower forward in order to get built. So right now, as we speak, I'm actually working on this tower every day. I'm working mainly on the podium level. I'm changing everything around and optimizing everything that we need. But it's a tower that I'm really proud of because it kept the elegancy that I praised the most at Zaha office. So it was one of the few projects that I felt that were really what I saw at Zaha, that what I fell in love with. So I really hope to keep this tower as elegant as it is for construction. It's my responsibility. Another project that I was part of the winning team, it was the Sydney Airport. I just joined this project. I was really young and very naive. It was actually a lesson that I learned when I joined, because when you join Zaha, obviously you think that you are expected to do crazy shapes and crazy architecture, and it's really not about that. Quite the opposite. Crazy shapes are not praised because they are crazy. Nothing crazy is good. And I was still in the phase of very plastic phase and very in this phase of what I thought the style was, right, which is a misconception. And then the actual design option that went forward, it was a very simple design, a very respectful design. It really respects the culture in Sydney. It really respects the environment. It's all made in wood. It's extremely simple, extremely slick and elegant, but all the details will be done with a lot of quality in the execution because of its simplicity. And it's actually just boxes, and the ceiling is just a wave of wood slats. This is one of the spaces where I worked. I did this baggage claim area. Actually, this exact money shot was the one that I was most responsible for. And it's truly an amazing space. It is not an obvious Zaha like everyone says traditionally, but as you get in this space, I'm pretty sure we will all be amazed. This project will probably be finished in a year. It's already under construction. And this was also another project where I was part of the winning team. I just joined this project in the end as an architectural designer. I was mainly responsible for these end pods and for the main entrance. It was a lot of fun. It went through a lot of rationalization process because of budget, of course, but that didn't take the design away. Okay, the design is still extremely elegant. Rationalization just made it possible to be built. It is also a project that I'm very proud of because I worked with friends in this project. So this was kind of where I put my whole time in, which is this entrance with these canopies. And hopefully one day will be built in a couple of years or so. Okay, so to finish this presentation, I want to speak about something else, which is what's beyond architecture. It's very important that we also save ourselves from living only a work kind of life. So there's a lot more than that. I am an avid traveler. I really enjoy traveling. I like to do my own designs as well. Teaching is also not a way to help other people. It's also a way for me to escape from the traditional office kind of life, so my designs can go somewhere. One of the examples was this chess set that I decided to do just to bring my designs to another free dimension, so with no one criticizing or saying what should be and what shouldn't be. So I took my own vision on. I decided to create a chess set just out of fun, obviously made in Maya. I applied a lot of the techniques that we do when we are doing towers, which is really funny. And this is more or less how it looked in the end. I'm super proud of it. It's still just a digital kind of work. I hope to get it built, fabricated, and to sell it. I love these babies. I'm really attached to them. But moving forward, I am actually in the present collaborating with the current team, which is a team of game designers, and they are invited me to be part of this chess streamed live on Twitch, which is a huge mega platform of chess that is streamed live. This guy that you see on the bottom is actually one of the most famous streamers. He has billions of views. And we wanted to bring a little bit of this Harry Potter chess experience, which is more eye level and human scale. And we are bringing my pieces. So the pieces that the players are playing with is with my pieces. There is a camera, which is eye level and is going around, and you can see the game being streamed. We are currently working on this. Hopefully it happens this year. And I'm also creating a platform for Maya completely on the side and not for office, which is just to cover Maya for beginners to intermediate to advanced, since Maya is a software that is widely used on super big offices like MAD, UN Studio, or Zaha. I think that it's just a simple software. It should have more people teaching the software. So I decided, okay, let's make a real platform for this software, since there is nothing online about it and no one else is doing anything for this. So this is something that I'm currently doing. So getting this platform built with Futurely. And then aside from this, there is a very important part of me that I like to preserve, which is the traveling part, which is the girly type, which is the fashion and the makeup, whatever. It is what my personality is that needs to survive apart from all the work that I do, because as you can imagine, I work a lot. But I hope to keep this alive for eternity. I hope so. So traveling is really something important. It's something that we see on Instagram, and we see it as a very cliche kind of experience. But traveling actually brings you a lot more than that. Le Corbusier traveled when he was young, when he was 23. He traveled for a whole year alone when no one was doing it. It was on 1920s. basically to understand what's the culture about, where do people live, how do they get along, how do they get about their days. And since ever I was a solo travel, I used to travel alone when I was young, and now I am lucky to have a partner who likes to travel as well. He's more into nature, I'm more into urban and metropolis and people, and we kind of converge there. So traveling has really been something important in my life, and it's something that I can actually make a break and a pause in my work, because now comes traveling. So this is what I do. This is what I juggle right now. I juggle one side that is extremely work driven and it's extremely intellectual driven, and there is another side which is just seeking for something else, seeking for another aesthetic, seeking for another culture, and preserving who I am also as a woman. So this is basically just it. So thank you so much, and maybe we can start a bit of Q&A.
Thank you, Mariana, and thank you for sharing part of your story, your research, your work, and your experience with us. We really appreciate it. Well, now we're gonna go ahead with the Q&A section, if you don't mind. So, ahorita ya está abierto. Si alguien quiere hacer preguntas, las puede hacer en el chat o las puede hacer en español o en inglés, como quieran. And well, I'm gonna go ahead with the first one because, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Well, you said something about the form and how we can, in a way, when you're designing, you go from a free form that has essentially like no boundaries or no, I mean, the only limit is the imagination, right? But how do you transfer that from being an idea to a real project that has a budget, boundaries, and other stuff?
So thank you for the question. A lot of people have that question. So I think there's something that people don't realize. You don't model with free form and with no rules in an office. That's what I do when I'm teaching, and that's what I do when I'm modeling alone. And that's one of the reasons why I do it, why I teach and why I model alone, because in that time is the only time that I really have no boundaries and it's free form. In an office, I don't have that freedom, obviously, because we are doing architecture. We are not just doing artistic expression. So believe it or not, all buildings Zaha have a very specific reason to be like that. And one of the reasons, it starts from typology. So what kind of typology is this? And it starts from case studies. Have we done any typology like that, like a hotel or like a museum? And it always have the rule of the typology, two, the rule of the budget. It is roughly you understand what the budget can cover or cannot cover. I know what kind of geometry a budget will never cover. Double curved glasses, for example, being very practical. Double curved glass is something that no one in the office really wants you to do. For example, it's really expensive. If you have to do it, it has to be for a big reason. So if I do a double curve anything, I will be asked, why did you do it? Which makes sense, obviously. And so there are a lot of rules. And then after that, there are the rules of the brief. Of course, sometimes the clients are very specific in hierarchy of spaces or organization of spaces, and you have to start designing having that in mind. Obviously, another thing is program. So all clients bring a specific square meter for a program, and that's obviously very constraining. And it's not constraining, it tells you what the shape has to be, right? So there are 1,000 of rules. When I'm working alone, I like to do it freely with no rules. So it's the first time, and it's the only time that I can actually just open my end and just let my creativity like go drain and drain and drain, even if it looks messy. But in an office, not really. It has rules.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
¿Tiene preguntas?
I actually have two, but I'll do the second one at the end because it's more of a closing question. So
yeah.
My first one comes from something you said at the beginning.
Alex, we can barely hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you guys hear me or? Sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah.
It comes from something you said at the beginning, where at one point all you knew was AutoCAD, right? And
Yep.
I feel like sometimes that's what happens with us students. We see these types of projects, and sometimes we get scared of these programs or unmotivated because we're so like appalled by them that we don't know what to do, you know? So you've passed through that experience, what would you say to these students that feel like, I don't know, like scared to start new programs, or that feel unmotivated with the types of projects that they're doing, seeing these types of projects?
But well, wait, what do you mean? You're saying that you feel demotivated when you see something really complex that your skills cannot achieve, or you feel that the kind of projects that they ask you in school are demotivated? It depends.
A little bit of both, I guess.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was trying to see. You never know. There are some schools that really foster design and they really engage with design. I was thinking if this was your case. So in my case, I think what motivated me was it was a bit of the anger that I kind of created from having to do boxes the whole time. And when I really didn't feel like it made any sense, I was forcing a box into a natural world, which is our world. And I never felt that was making much sense. So I created some kind of anger to do what I felt that it was right for architecture. So when I saw the RL on that very specific day, when I saw all of these boards in front of me, I had two feelings. I had the feeling of, I know exactly what you are saying, and finally what I believed other people believed as well. So in a way that motivated me to kind of overcome the feeling of I have no clue how to do what you did, because that was another feeling that I had when I saw DRL for the first time, Design Research Laboratory. It was, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea how you did what you did. And they did a lot of simulations, and they do a lot of simulations, and I felt I was a 0 and they were 100, but I understand completely what you are saying. So I will take the risk, and I will try and achieve this, because one thing is trying to understand something, another thing is learning a software, which is a tool. So if you understand it, you have already 90% of your way done. And then you have the extra 10% of learning a software. So that was exactly the feeling that I had. I was just jumping into a pool of skills that I didn't have. And then I actually achieved them. So they were not an issue. I think that because we have to do the traditional, conventional, modernist architecture in school, in some people actually like it and they move forward in their lives with it, which is good. Some people hate it to a point that it kind of creates an anger of looking for something else, and that makes you actually achieve something else. So I think that it's fine if you feel frustrated at school. It will probably lead you, it will make it work as a catapult, you know. It will be a trampoline. And the skills is just a software. It's literally just a software.
Thank you. And we actually have some in the chat. I don't know if, I think there's one in English. Oh, there's both in English. I'll read them if you want.
Yeah.
It's from Gabi Gomez. Thank you for sharing. I love your transparency and honesty in both your career path and what goes into your office. A question a little outside of topic is, what is the long-term career goal for you as an architectural high-end designer?
That is an extremely important question and a very hard one, because right now I can afford to be an architectural designer of high-end design. I am in an office, one of the few offices that actually has the culture of high-end design, has the clients who want high-end design and clients who bring budgets for high-end design. And more important than all of this, the office has people who want to do high-end design and who know how to do high-end design. Okay, so it's not just having the budget and the client. You need the guy who knows how to work in Grasshopper, the girl who knows how to do BIM, the guy or the girl who knows how to do design. You need them, really need them, the best ones, to do high-end design. And so what's my career term for this? I hope to kind of depart from the office that I work for, obviously, like some of us, start my own practice, and I really wish to make design survive in my office. And if with time I can, I hope to achieve high-end design in my practice. I will start my own practice with architectural design always present and always in mind, not just because I want to, but because I think it makes sense. I think that budget should go to functionality, and I also think that budget should go into design because we have to live with it. So I hope that design survives. I hope that high-end comes in the future.
Thank you, Mariana. And we have another one from Jenny Lee. It's first of all, thank you for this amazing and inspiring presentation. My question is, how do you manage to push yourself to create these forms whenever you get stuck in the creative process? You do.
I get stuck. I think everyone gets a bit stuck, and everyone overcomes this in very different ways. Some people like to be inspired. I never met anyone like that. I usually work harder. So if I'm stuck and I don't have any ideas, the only thing that I do is I have to work for the next 5 hours. I'm not leaving my chair. So I usually go random things. I go on Pinterest. I look for mood boards. If I'm really out of ideas, I can spend the whole day creating a mood board, but at least I worked. I really think that work and the hours that you put on a project brings you quality and not inspiration or going for a walk or, you know, usually for me it's working. So if you're really uninspired, I just get on, I don't know, Zaha library, and I look into projects, look into references, look into images, start modeling random things that are completely, they will be lost and I will never look at them ever. They will never go anywhere, but you start modeling. You just let it drain somewhere physical as well. So it's normal that we get stuck. We all get stuck in the office. I just think that to overcome that, you have to work, not to wait for inspiration to kind of pop in.
¿Alguien más tiene preguntas?
Actually, I have a question, and this comes from what you mentioned about the misconception about what some people think as of crazy shapes and the lack of reception these ideas have in other areas of architecture. What do you think are the strengths and weaknesses of this type of design and this kind of visual representation? Like, is it strong in the ways you have presented it to us, but it lacks in I don't know, globalization or something?
Lacks in globalization is interesting. Never thought about that. But I think that obviously has its pros and cons. I think that everything high-end design, I'm just going to the cons because it's what I usually like better. High-end design have usually a problem, which is it has to be an exception of the space. I feel not everything should be high-end design. I think that will mean that everything is overly designed. So just like every city has a lot of diversity in typologies and in types and facades, even part of the diversity outside it's high-end design. But a city that is completely homogeneous in any way is horrendous. Completely homogeneous with high-end design is an overkill, is a rococo. It is, I would not do it. I think it belongs to a diverse city, high-end design. I think that when it's overdone, it is already a mistake. So that will be my first take on what's the cons about high-end design. Obviously, very practical terms about high-end design, and the cons is you need big teams, you need big budgets, you need people really committed to it. High-end design brings a lot of work, brings double the work than you would need if it was a simple project. So in this case, actually, the tower was meant to be very simple, and we said I said as well, elegant should be elegant, should be elegant, and we made it more complex. And just by doing this style, it's a headache. I'm working 3 times, I'm literally putting more hours of my work because we decided to go for the complex. So it brings you this disadvantage of it's a headache, harder headache than a traditional box. So that's another issue of high-end design. And then it has something that I think is really an appreciation of architecture. I think it brings beauty in another way. It brings elegancy. It's something that we don't speak in school, but I'm really in favor for. It brings elegancy, it brings beauty, it takes architecture to another dimension, and it also, most important part, it pushes boundaries. It pushes the boundaries of design, and more than that, it pushes the boundary of construction, the boundary of team work, the boundary of techniques, the boundary of materials. It just pushes. And I think that high-end design is probably more responsible for progression in architecture than the traditional architecture, because it's just pushing the boundary and see where it goes. Obviously, it's very vulnerable for it to fail, and when it fails, you see it right there because the boundary was pushed too much, probably. But I think that's how you achieve progression. I don't think conventionality reaches very far and doesn't push much.
Thank you. I have a question from a friend. This is from Melissa Magdalena. And she asked, what do you feel are certain qualities or habits you integrated into your lifestyle that have taken you or added up to the place you are today? As an architect, obviously.
Quality or habits? Again, I think it really depends on everyone. For me, I really think it's discipline. But it really depends on everyone because I was very wild and very genuine. And what I was lacking was discipline. So I had the creativity, I had the drive, I had the ambition, I had the energy. I was just missing, the constraint, okay, but you have to do it in 5 hours, you have to do it in 1 day, you have to do it in the morning, you have to, so discipline is exactly what got me into where I am right now. Actually, when I finished my master thesis, the judge said that between them, my family overheard them. They said she will not go very far if she doesn't have more discipline. And here I am. And after that, I heard that from my family. I was like, okay, I'm going to show you, because it's easier to get disciplined than being, different. So right now, what I do is on my notebook, I note everything that I need to do, everything from windows to frames to the most stupid tasks that you have to do in a day. I have them in a list, one by one, like extrude 20 centimeters, tick, done. Like all the operations. So I'm ticking boxes every day. I don't think everyone has to do this, but because discipline was my weakness when I was younger, when I was a student, right now what gets me through, one doing office and the other one working outside office, which is a very big challenge, is by multitasking and checking boxes. So I think that's my most important habit right now.
Mariana.
Thank you, Mariana. And we still have some questions in the chat. Let me see. This one is from Jerly. Thank you very much for your time and presentation. My question is, which is your biggest advice that you could give a student who wants one day to be able to do, I think he meant be able to build and design things like you do today?
I think, it depends on every kind of student, but I really think that pushing the boundary that they are giving you is really important for you to achieve something higher. So when they give you a boundary, and I mean teachers, and they ask you to stitch to that, you can be just there, but keep your ambition on doing something different and on pushing your boundary on everything, not just shape and not just form. That there are a lot of other boundaries on your brief, on program, on how people interact, on how people live and dwell. So push the boundaries on everything, question all of this, question the brief, question the form, question the context. So push the boundary in everything, and then don't be too focused on the shape and on the form or having a style. I don't think anyone should have a style ever. Or in office, especially not as a student. So do everything different every time. Do circles, do triangles, do boxes, do completely free form. So push the boundaries on everything while you are a student. It's the best time for you to do that. And then to join an office, I think that you just have to prove that you actually push these boxes and that you like to do it. And I'm pretty sure that you will get somewhere.
So we have one more question from Angelo Losa. It says, thanks for sharing your experience with us. I commend you for not following the conventional way of projecting architecture that you were taught in school and looking for something that made you feel satisfied with your own way of designing. You mentioned that working in an office, you have certain rules that you have to follow when you design versus when you design on your own. How does your design process change when you have those rules versus not having them, if it changes at all?
That's a very good question. I think no one asked me that before. So yeah, it's a different process. Obviously, it's a bit similar because it's all one the same software, and because there's a successful recipe that I also take it when I'm doing free form modeling. So when I'm doing free form modeling, to be very practical, when I'm doing something that is for the purpose of teaching Maya, I like to push the boundaries of the software, which means pushing the boundaries of the shape. It doesn't have a specific function. It just has the right tools that I want you to learn. So I think what's the best shape for these tools? Sometimes it's bridging, sometimes it's creasing. It really depends on the tools that I want to teach. And then the second thing is that I do is I go on Pinterest and I look for natural organic shapes on sculptures, random things, and I try to model them exactly like they are. It could be anything that you can imagine, from brutalism to just piece of nature to a specific fish scale. Fish scales are really cool. Any underwater species really interesting, and I just take them and I model them. I model them the way they are, and I apply the tools that I think that are important to teach. So obviously I cannot do this in an office. I don't even know what the reaction would be if I would take a fish as a concept, or they would think that I was a student, of course. But when I'm alone, I can do that and I enjoy it. And maybe one day my practice can take that a little bit more on board. Who knows? There's another question about structure. Yeah.
Thanks, Mariana.
Hello.
How do you visualize the future of architects and the architecture in the next years and nowadays?
What do you mean?
What do you visualize the future from architecture?
The future of architecture.
And the role from the architects nowadays.
I think, yeah.
And in the future.
It really depends on what kind of future we are talking about. If we are talking about our future, so the one that is tangible to me and to you, I think it won't change much. It will still be an intermediate between buildings and clients who wants to build. That's who we are. We are still protecting architecture as a science and not as an art. That's how I see it. I like this approach of science in architecture. I like this approach of technology in architecture as well. If everything goes well in the world, we can mass customize the production of architecture by robotic arms. This will probably be a tangible future to us, but I'm not even sure. I think robotic arms will be cheaper as we we achieve like 70 or 80 years old, robotic arms will be for everyone. And as soon as robotic arms come in place as a common part of the construction methods, I think we'll see a lot more organic architecture. I think we will realize that the 90-degree angle is just a cheap and lazy way to do architecture. And the stiff architecture happens because of the budget. And that's how we kind of we don't defy gravity. That's how we work with gravities, with these 90 degrees angles. I don't think our comfort level comes from those angles. So I would say that organic architecture will most likely be put in place if technology actually runs at the same time as we do, which is kind of behind actual technology and affordable technology. So our tangible future for me and you will probably be more accessible technology.
Thanks, Mariana. We still have a lot of questions in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and read one from Elisa Martinez. She comments, thank you very much for the presentation. My question is, in the case of Zaha Hadid's office that holds the name of the former founder, is it challenging to design something in the name of such an iconic architect? Or is it something that doesn't cross your mind that often?
Yeah, I think it was something that, it's actually a super good question as well. It was something that was crossing my mind when I joined. It was Zaha, it was Zaha place. And then with time, it's just the office that you work for. And with the very good people who work there. And it's your director, who is not Zaha, is my director. And you work for him specifically. I have a director in my cluster, so you have kind of you even feel that you work for the director of your cluster. So it's like a tiny village in a town. So you kind of don't take this heavy load on your shoulders of Zaha as the person. I even think that in my mind, I have a separate Zaha on the side, a separate idea of the Zaha office, obviously. So there's one office, which is the office I work for, and then there's Zaha office, you know. Obviously, I take the responsibility of this big firm on my shoulders and the responsibility of being innovative. That's definitely what I sign up for when I joined the office. If I think about Zaha, how much not, I just think personally, because she's my reference, but that doesn't make me model more like this or like that.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read another one that I accidentally did not see. So this is from Hector Camacho. He comments, thanks for the beautiful presentation. Thanks for the presentation, beautiful projects. My question would be, what is it like to work together with the engineers in this type of structure?
So it's very exciting to work with engineers. They are not part of Zaha office. We always work with consultants, like any architectural office, big one especially, work with consultants. Some of my favorite consultants are Arup in London, Ben Happold, also my favorites. And you also get your favorites from around the world. You work with them for the competition, and then you work with them to finalize a project. And it's actually very exciting when you work with fresh kind of companies or companies with fresh minds, because they are so excited with your shape as you are. It's a challenge. They like to take on challenges. So they would not take the traditional structural system, you know. They actually feel challenged and they want to solve this as if they had a problem to solve, and they want to help. So it's like a project then from both sides. And the consultants are like, they send us weekly reports, we send them stuff, we meet with them, and it's one of my favorite meetings is usually with engineers. And it's a very, very smooth collaboration. They show us proposals for structure, we show them proposals for shape, and then we are refining both, also according to budget.
So Mariana, how are we on timing? Are you doing still okay? Can we go
I'm
ahead?
I'm fine. Yeah. Go ahead,
Okay.
go ahead.
Great. So there's another question or comment from Efraim Boyain. I truly enjoyed this conference. I admire the ease in which you share experiences. I have to ask you, if you had to describe architecture in one word or phrase, which one would it be? And also, have you ever been on the edge of giving up a project? If you have, how did you get over it? So those are like 3 in 1.
I think the word for architecture really depends on everyone. In my case, I would probably say immersive. I just came up with it, but it's basically most likely because when I'm doing architecture, I'm not really I'm there. I'm always there inside of that space, which is really funny. Sometimes I revisit some projects and I feel like I've been walking through those streets and walking through those rooms. I even remember what kind of music I was listening when I was creating them. So it's an extremely immersive a practice for me. I'm really nowhere else when I'm designing. I'm inside of that space. But it depends on everyone. This was a bit my case. Have you ever been on the edge of giving up on a project? If you have, how did you get over it? First of all, one good thing about big companies and companies like Zaha is they have a lot of people that compensate your lack of work or when you're down. So whenever, which is like having a second mattress. So if you're not doing really well, someone will fall, like with secure. They will finish the project regardless, and that's really reassuring. Can be dangerous to some people whom else is lazy. To people who are lazy, there are not a lot of lazy people in the office. But for lazy people, this will be be tricky. But if I am doing badly, I know that they will save me, that the project will still go well. There was one time that I was about to give up architecture. It was the only time in my life. I wanted to be an architect since I was 8 years old, and I gave up architecture when I was 24. I gave up for 10 minutes, but I really fully sign out. It was the first time that I had a no. I asked my teacher to be my tutor for the thesis, and he dismissed me completely. And then he regretted in time later on, but I didn't accept. But he dismissed it, and I felt like really mediocre and really, really average. He was the best teacher, the best tutor, and he said, no, like this, no. I have already a lot of people. He said this, and I was like 23 or something, and I thought, okay, I'm really more average than I thought. I'm really mediocre. This is the only thing that I know how to do, architecture. I'm quitting. And then I left the room and I look at everyone and I felt like, you guys keep being idiots and I'm not a part of this shit anymore. And I left the university, and then my father came and he just told me like, you're not going down because of one person, of one idiot. This is one idiot in your life who you will never remember ever again. So you're gonna get back there and you're gonna do your best. And that's when I gave up. And then I continued. So it was 10 minutes of completely sign out. And what was the other? There was another one. If you, I finished the answer.
Okay, great. We have other 3 questions left. This is from Rodrigo Rojas. Thank you, Mariana. As we can see, you have already been involved in big budget projects. Your designs are really amazing, and Zaha is one of my first source of inspiration for my own projects. I'm also really curious if huge offices like Zaha sometimes look to the other side and learn from low budget or social projects. Have you ever thought about doing or supporting social architecture projects?
It's a hard one because it might be a bit controversial, but I'm very transparent, so I'll continue being transparent regardless of your opinion. I don't know how my colleagues work. I don't know if they look for budget social projects when they want to be inspired or when they want to learn something. I don't tend to do it just for one reason. That's not exactly what I have in mind. So if I'm working for a high budget project, I look for high budget projects. So how did they solve this? So I need to be contextualized with my brief, with the place that I'm in, which is Zaha, and with the client that I'm dealing with, which is like some sheikh from Saudi Arabia. So obviously I'll get the best references to get the best kind of architecture because it's not, we also need to compete with the high-end design that has been already done. right? We need to take the step forward, not in budget, not in complexity, but how do you refine this? What's the step forward for that? So obviously I would have to look for high-end design and understand what are they lacking, and then I take my approach to it. If I wanted to do social housing, you know, my best friends, actually, they were very much into social housing, and it was interesting when I was a student, and it was interesting to see how they thought and their references and what their worries were. And it was also very clear to me that I was not part of that team. But it's okay. I think that we are so many and we have so many talented people that we can be part of this team or that team or the sustainability team or the social housing team or the high-end design team. You can be from whatever team you want to pick. I didn't pick sustainability team. I didn't pick the social housing team just because I've been following my gut till now, and my gut has been leading me here. It does not mean that I don't care about it. I care. I like to see the news about it. I like to see the zine. I like to see Design Boom. Any good things that have been done for social housing, I think they're really important. And there's a lot of social housing issues in my country or any country, to be honest. And I really like to think about them. Do I like to put them in practice? Not really. Not my drive.
Very interesting answer. Thank you for your transparency. So another question is from Vanessa Ramirez. She says, thank you so much for such an inspiring talk. It impresses me how you never stayed in comfort zones and pursued your ambitions to grow as a professional. I would be interested to know, how has your experience and professional path been as a female architect? Did you face any obstacles? I know.
It's a long one. It's a long one which has to be explained short for many reasons. Main reason because everyone who is not a woman wants us to answer short, so I'll try and answer short. Yes, there are obstacles. It is well transparent that it is a mainly male profession. I had a lot of talks about it, so I had to research about this as well. So they just did this study in the UK, for example, just to make our case factual. They did these studies in the UK for 2020, and only 10% of the leading positions are women, which means that 90% are men in current offices. That's very scary. I like to think that I'm fighting for this 10% to become a lot wider and to make this more balanced. I think this is one of the responsibilities that I have. There are obviously obstacles. Zaha has a lot of phrases about this that you should read into them. They are very positive. She has one specific phrase that says, being a woman in architecture is a challenge. And she says, but it's fine, I like to live on the edge. So there is some positivity about it, which is when you're the only one in the room, that also means that your voice is stronger. And when there are 30 guys in a meeting and there is one girl in the meeting as well, they will forget the names of the 30 guys, they will remember yours. This is a very practical example. Okay, obviously there it comes the time when you speak, and that's another chapter. What do they understand from the things you say? I think that it's changing. I don't think it's changing because of gender differences and because we are shouting out for gender because of the gender differences. I think it's changing because we are bringing a lot of diversity into play. Like my generation, your generation, we are dealing with loads of diversity, completely different from our parents or anyone who is leading an office right now. They live with the diversity of their little primary school, diversity of their house, diversity of their high school. And the diversity that you guys lived with and that I lived with is the whole world talking at the same time. So we have been dealing with people from all over the world since we are very young, especially you. I got it when I was a teenager, but you guys have been living with diversity since very young. So that makes equality something that is normal for you. It should be, because you know that people feel like this in Asia, people feel like this in Africa, and this is exactly, you know this. Higher ranking people do not know this. They see things in a very homogeneous tone. So I think things will change gradually because you guys are changing and because my generation is changing. And I'm saying this is a gender problem, and it is a gender problem, but it has a lot of other problems. Most likely people from Mexico. So diversity comes in every way. It's not just gender. So you don't know if you would apply to my office and they have something for, oh, but Mexico, that's so uncommon, you know, and which is the good thing about it. It is changing. It is not just gender, it is just diversity. And I'm a true believer of fluid gender as well. And I think that fluidity in gender is something that is being pushed forward. So we will overcome this naturally. I don't think I will see it in my lifetime, but maybe in some other lifetimes, it will be super fluid, super equally and normal.
Well, thank you, Mariana. And it's an honor for us as a school to have personalities like yours speaking to us as young voices. Unfortunately, our time is up, but we'll make sure that further questions get to you. And well, we would like to give you a recognition for your time and for being here. So
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Omar. I will go ahead. First reading in Spanish for everyone else, and then, well, Universidad Iberoamericana otorga el presente reconocimiento a la arquitecta Mariana Cabugueira Custodio dos Santos por compartir su experiencia en el evento La Arquitectura en Perspectiva, organizada por la Sociedad de Alumnos de Arquitectura, al día de Tijuana, Baja California, el 13 de abril del 2021. And also in English, Universidad Iberoamericana grants this recognition to Mariana Cabugueira Custodio dos Santos for sharing her experience with the event La Arquitectura en Perspectiva, Architecture in Perspective, organized by the Student Society of Architecture, Tijuana, Baja California, to the date of April 13th, 2021.
Thank you.
Thank you. Everyone, please applaud.
I hope you have enjoyed. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all the questions that are here, but you can ask me directly.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much. It
Mariana.
was really a great event.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. It was an honor.
You're
Thanks, Mariana.
welcome
Thank you
anytime.
for being here.
Okay, guys. Have a good day.
You
I
too.
will
Good
send the
night.
Bye-bye.
recognize.
Bye, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.